Hello, I'm Dan. I decided to make my first YouTube video and we are going to build gaming/CAD PC. Here you can see all of the parts and I guess let's get started. The first part of our build is our platform, which is MSI X870E carbon motherboard. It has pretty beefy VRM with aluminum heatsinks all around the place. It has quick release for main M.2 SSD, quick release for GPU, quick release for free M.2 SSDs below it, beefy I/O at the back and front panel, and more. Here is our GPU. It is RTX 5080 from Gigabyte. It has 16 gigs of VRAM and they state that it is SFF variant of the card with 305mm length. Here is the third part of our build. It is PSU from Antec with 1200 watt of power and ATX 3.1 and PCI Express 5.1 support. It's fully modular, feels very solid, heavy, and all of the ports are available, including 12-volt high power for GPUs. Cables have pretty nice sleeving and overall look pretty good. Our next item for this build is a CPU cooler. It is Arctic Liquid Freezer Free 360 Black. It has three 120mm fans with very high static pressure for radiator usage. It has very flat, full copper base for CPU mounting, combined with a pump. It also includes detachable magnetic cover for a CPU mount plate/pump combo. And it also includes a fan inside to cool down VRMs during intense loads. Two different SSDs will serve as our storage. The first SSD is Lexar M800 Pro with DRAM cache, pretty good for Windows installation, and the secondary SSD for file storage is Lexar RS. It is DRAM-less SSD. Here is our case for the system. It is LianLi 011 dynamic with optional top glass panel with glass side panel and glass front panel, so it makes it completely see-through and absolutely gorgeous. Looks like it is actually time to make the thing. I'll try to do my best to build it. It will not be easy because of the camera angle, but let's try to do something with that, right? What I want to do is to install the motherboard first. There you go. This case is pretty big and can fit very different components inside. Therefore, I don't think it can fit eATX motherboard. It has pretty big all-in-one mount, so you can mount pretty thick radiator there. But as a downside, this flexible mount is held by only one screw. When I installed that, I found out that it vibrates a lot when you wiggle the case or the all-in-one, which means that I needed to insulate it somehow, and I put few foam pieces between case and cooler mount. Pump installation was not hard at all. I just needed to remove stock plastic mounts for AM4/AM5. Then I needed to install metal brackets included with Arctic. They have a small offset to move the center of the cold plate to the center of the heat production on the processor. Then I covered with some thermal paste and attached the pump itself. This CPU cooler includes 3 wires to control how it operates. It has VRM fan, it has pump, and radiator fans control. RGB variants of it also include RGB header to control lights, but since I have full black edition, I don't have one. For air intake, I used three 120mm fans from Thermalright. These are reversed fans, so they will enhance looks of the build overall. Wiring was simple, and I think it is always simple with LianLi cases because they have huge compartments at the back for wiring. And when you plug in all of your wires, you can just leave them there and not care about zip tying them or twisting around. So you can have pretty slick looking build even though at the back you have a rat nest of wires. When I installed all the wires, I needed to plug in the power supply. It is so much easier now to plug in GPU wires with this 12-volt high power connector, because you have to connect only one connector overall. You don't need 3 or 4 of them for powerful GPUs. Yes, they do melt for 4090 and 5090, but since we are using 5080, we should be pretty good since it mostly consumes only 300 watts of power during intense loads. Now, when all parts are installed and wiring is done, it was time to try the machine. I pressed the power button and was waiting for boot sequence. It took some time because of DDR5 training, so I sped up the video, and at some point it reached the BIOS screen. That meant that everything is good, at least for now. Fast forward here, at some point I realized that just building a computer is kind of boring. So I decided to add few engineering elements to enhance its appearance. I will show you how I 3D scanned computer parts, how I 3D modeled carbon fiber plates, how I cut them on CNC machine, and how I installed them. 3D scanning is quite complex procedure because you need to prepare the part itself. You need to prepare the place where you do 3D scanning, you need to prepare 3D scanner, make sure it is clean, that all surrounding objects are clean, and all of the markers are in place to ensure that it will not drop alignment. So I put all of the markers in place and started scanning. The scanner I use is Creality CRScan Raptor. And it is an awesome machine with some questionable software decisions. It's a blue light laser scanner which can provide pretty accurate details of parts, but the software, it has some good sides and pretty bad sides, but overall it's a pretty good tool, especially considering its price. It's much cheaper than other blue light scanners, and it provides pretty high accuracy for its price point, so I'm pretty happy with it. 3D scanning is not perfect, it has its own challenges. For example, here you can see that MSI logo dragon scanned perfectly, but area surrounding it didn't, and the reason for that is because plastic there was reflective. So I needed to hold scanner with a specific angle to catch as much data as possible there, and I ended up measuring few parts with caliper just because it was faster than try to scan everything as is. Same applies to the GPU. I was able to scan white lines pretty easily with text, but flat, black, anodized aluminum was not that easy to scan, so I needed to hold scanner with 90 degrees angle to get proper results. 3D scanner basically measures a bunch of points and stores their coordinates in 3D space, making a point cloud. Then the software supplied by the manufacturer should make a mesh out of them. So it merges them the way that it combines 3 points into one polygon. And then all of these teeny tiny polygons create surfaces, bodies, enclosed, not enclosed bodies, and serve as a 3D object. When all of the scans were performed, I imported them into 3D modeling software, put few anchor points, then I created surfaces to work with because these 3D scans were somewhere in space, they were not aligned by X, Y, and Z axes. So I aligned axes, aligned all of the scans, and then just started to wrap around their contours to make panels that I need. Then I converted 3D models into 2D vectors and cut them on CNC machine. $5080 is still relatively new GPU, so I decided to use double-sided tape instead of permanent measures to stick carbon fiber plate onto backplate. I properly degreased the thing with isopropyl alcohol. I used different width of double-sided tape to attach it properly. It stuck so well there that I could hold entire GPU by holding only the carbon fiber plate. Then I performed the same trick for the motherboard. Plugged in the GPU back. Here you can see the final result. All of the plates are in their positions, they look pretty good, they stick well, and they are not going anywhere even under temperatures or after some time. So here is a complete build. Let's turn it on, and while it boots, let's talk a little bit about specs. It is Ryzen 9 9950X with 96 gigabytes of DDR5 with 6400 megatransfers per second, 5 terabytes of storage, X870E motherboard from MSI with pretty beefy I/O, including 4 USB Type-C ports at the back and 1 USB Type-C port at the front, and 2 Ethernet ports with 2.5 and 5 gigs. I can also show how it looks without the side glass panel, because it should look much better without it. And also, since it is booted, I can log in into the system, so we will see both screens at the same time. Yep, should be in. So system performs well, games run pretty good. It is 5080. I will leave few benchmarks from games. I don't play much, but still they may be useful for some people. And yeah, this is a complete build, and it looks absolutely amazing and works absolutely amazing.